Hello everyone. Now we are going to learn about systematics and evolution. So in this video we are going to start the initial portions of systematics like taxonomy related topics. So in this video we are going to cover topics related to introduction, definition and basic concepts of systematics and taxonomy, levels of taxonomy like alpha, beta and gamma taxonomy, importance and application of taxonomy, goals of taxonomy, and definition of systematics, definition of classification. So first topic, systematics description. Systematics is a branch of biology that deals with the classification and organization of organisms into groups based on their evolutionary relationships. It involves the use of various tools and techniques to identify, describe, and classify organisms. Systematics is important because it helps us understand the diversity of life on Earth and provides us with a framework for studying the evolution and biology of different species. So in this article we will discuss the description, importance and application of systematics in detail. So description of systematics. Systematics is the scientific study of biological diversity and the evolutionary relationships between different organisms. It involves the classification of organisms into groups based on their similarities and differences, and the creation of a classification hierarchy that reflects the evolutionary history of life on Earth. The classification hierarchy is typically arranged in a nested pattern with larger groups containing smaller, more closely related groups. The major levels of classification are domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. The tools and techniques used in systematics include morphological analysis, molecular analysis, and phylogenetic analysis. Morphological analysis involves the study of the physical characteristics of organisms such as their shape, size, and structure. Molecular analysis involves the study of DNA and RNA sequences to identify similarities and differences between organisms. So, phylogenetic analysis involves the creation of evolutionary trees that show the relationships between different groups of organisms. Then, importance of systematics. Systematics is important for several reasons. Firstly, it helps us understand the diversity of life on Earth and provides us with a framework for studying the evolution and biology of different species. By understanding the evolutionary relationships between organisms, we can gain insights into their biology, behavior, and ecology. Secondly, systematics is important for conservation biology. By identifying and classifying different species, we can access their conservation status and develop conservation strategies to protect them from extinction. Systematics also helps us understand the impact of human activities on biodiversity and provides us with tools to manage and protect natural ecosystems. Finally, systematics is important for agriculture, medicine, and biotechnology. By understanding the relationships between different species, we can develop new crop varieties, identify new sources of medicine, and develop new biotechnological applications. Some major applications of systematics. Systematics has several applications in various fields of biology. Some of the major applications of systematics are as follows, like evolutionary biology. Systematics is essential for understanding the evolutionary history of life on Earth. It helps us identify the relationships between different species and reconstruct their evolutionary history. Then, conservation biology. Systematics is important for conservation biology as it helps us assess the conservation status of different species and develop conservation strategies to protect them. Then, biogeography. Systematics is used in biogeography to study the distribution and migration of different species across the globe. Then agriculture. Systematics is used in agriculture to develop new crop varieties and improve crop yields. Then medicine. Systematics is used in medicine to identify new sources of medicine and develop new drugs. So in the field of conservation biology and biogeography, systematics is used in biogeography to study the distribution and migration of different species across the globe. Then systematics is used in agriculture to develop new crop varieties and improve crop yields. Then medicine. Systematics is used in medicine to identify new sources of medicine and develop new drugs. Then biotechnology. Systematics is used in biotechnology to develop new biotechnological applications and improve existing ones. So in conclusion, systematics is an essential branch of biology that deals with the classification and organization of organisms based on their evolutionary relationships. It is important for understanding the diversity of life on Earth, studying the evolution and biology of different species, assessing the conservation status of different species, and developing new technological or biotechnological applications. The tools and techniques used in systematics, including morphological analysis, molecular analysis, and phylogenetic analysis, provide us with a framework for studying the complexity of life on Earth. Then, definition and basic concepts in systematics and taxonomy. Taxonomy. Systematics and taxonomy are related fields in biology that deals with the classification, naming, and organization of living organisms. Systematics refers to the scientific study of the diversity of life on Earth and the relationships between different organisms. It involves the use of various tools and techniques to identify, describe, and classify organisms based on their shared characteristics and evolutionary history. Systematics is concerned with understanding the patterns and processes of evolution that have led to the diversity of life, and it aims to create a classification system that reflects the evolutionary relationships between organisms. So, taxonomy is a subfield of systematics that focuses on the naming and classification of organisms. It involves the identification, description, and naming of species, as well as the organization of these species into a hierarchical classification system. So, systematics, we learned, that refers to the scientific study of the diversity of life on Earth and the relationships between different organisms. It involves the use of various tools and techniques to identify, describe, and classify organisms based on their shared characteristics and evolutionary history. Systematics is concerned with understanding the patterns and processes of evolution that have led to the diversity of life, and it aims to create a classification system that reflects the evolutionary relationships between organisms. So, taxonomy is a subfield of systematics that focuses on the naming and classification of organisms. It involves the identification, description, and naming of species, as well as the organization of the species into a hierarchical classification system. Taxonomy is based on the principle of nomenclature, which provides a standardized system of naming and referring to organisms. The basic concepts in systematics and taxonomy include classification, the process of grouping organisms based on shared characteristics and evolutionary relationships. Then taxon. A taxon is a group of organisms at a particular level of the classification hierarchy. Examples of taxons or taxa, plural, include species, genus, family, order, class, phylum, and kingdom. Then phylogeny. A phylogeny is a diagram that shows the evolutionary relationships between different organisms or groups of organisms. Then phylogenes are constructed using various methods, including morphological, molecular, and genetic data. Then homology. Homology refers to the similarity of traits or characteristics between different organisms due to their common ancestry. Then analogous traits. Analogous traits are features that are similar in function or appearance but have evolved independently in different groups of organisms. Analogous traits are not evidence of shared ancestry and can be misleading in classification. Then binomial nomenclature. A standardized system of naming organisms developed by Carl Linnaeus. Binomial nomenclature involves giving each species as a unique two-part name consisting of a genus name and a species name. These concepts form the basis of systematics and taxonomy and are used to organize, describe, and classify the diversity of life on Earth. Next topic, levels of taxonomy. Taxonomy is a science of classifying living organisms into a hierarchical system of groups. There are various levels of taxonomy, each with its own unique characteristics and features. These levels range from the most general, encompassing all living organisms, to the most specific, representing individual species. In this essay, we will discuss the different levels of taxonomy, their descriptions, examples, and importance. Then domain. The highest level of taxonomy, domain, represent the most general grouping of organisms. There are three domains: archaea, bacteria, and eukarya. Archaea, bacteria, eukarya. Archaea and bacteria are both single-celled organisms without a nucleus or other membrane-bound organelles, while eukarya encompasses all organisms with a two nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. So what is archaea? Archaea and bacteria are both single-celled organisms without a nucleus or other membrane-bound organelle, while eukarya represent all organisms with a true nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. Then kingdom. The kingdom is the second highest level of taxonomy and represents a major division of life. There are 6 kingdoms like Archaebacteria, Eubacteria, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. Each kingdom has unique characteristics and features that distinguish it from other kingdoms. For example, Archaebacteria and Eubacteria are both prokaryotic organisms, whilst Protista is a group of eukaryotic organisms that are single-celled or colonial. Then phylum. Phylum represents the next level of taxonomy and groups of organisms based on similar body plans and characteristics. There are over 30 phyla and some examples include chordata, animals with a spinal cord, arthropoda, insects, spiders and crustaceans, and mollusca, snails, clams and octopuses. Then class. The class is a level of taxonomy that groups organisms with similar characteristics and features within a phylum. For example, in the phylum Chordata, there are several classes including Mammalia, mammals, aves, birds, and reptilia or reptiles. Order. The order represents the next level of taxonomy and groups organisms with similar characteristics and features within a class. Examples of orders include Carnivora, carnivorous mammals such as cats and dogs, primates, humans, apes, and monkeys, and Rodentia, rodents such as rats and mice. Then family. The family is a level of taxonomy that groups organisms with similar characteristics and features within an order. For example, in the order primates, there are several families including Hominidae, humans and great apes, and Cercopithecidae and old world monkeys. Then later, genus. The genus is a level of taxonomy that groups organisms with similar characteristics and features within a family. For example, the genus Homo includes humans and our closest living relatives, while the genus Pan includes chimpanzees and bonobos. Then species. The species is the most specific level of taxonomy and represents individual organisms that can interbreed and produce viable offspring. Species are identified based on a combination of physical, genetic, and behavioral characteristics. For example, Homo sapiens is the scientific name for humans. The importance of taxonomy lies in its ability to organize and classify the vast diversity of life on Earth. Taxonomy provides a standardized system of naming and referring to organisms which is essential for communication and understanding in the biological science. By classifying organisms into distinct groups, taxonomy allows researchers to study the evolutionary relationships between different organisms and understand the patterns and processes of evolution that have led to the diversity of life we see today. Then taxonomy also plays an important role in conservation efforts by identifying and protecting endangered and threatened species. Overall, the different levels of taxonomy provide a framework for understanding the complexity and diversity of life on Earth. Next topic, alpha taxonomy. Alpha taxonomy is the study of classifying and identifying individual species. It involves the identification and description of new species as well as the categorization of existing species into their respective taxonomic groups. So alpha taxonomy is the study of classifying and identifying individual species. It's about individual. It involves the identification. First we need to identify what is that particular animal. Identify, then describe, later categorization of the existing species into their respective taxonomic groups. In this essay, we will discuss the different types of alpha taxonomy, the procedure involved in alpha taxonomy, examples, and the importance of alpha taxonomy. There are different types of alpha taxonomy, like descriptive taxonomy, descriptive type, descriptive taxonomy. This type of alpha taxonomy involves the identification and description of new species based on their physical characteristics such as size, shape, color, and other morphological features. This type of taxonomy is essential in understanding the diversity of life on Earth. Then, comparative taxonomy. Alpha taxonomy provides and involves the identify similarities. So, alpha taxonomy expands our knowledge of the natural world and concept of new fields of study. Alpha taxonomy also provides a construction of phylogenetic trees, the evolutionary history of species and their relationships to one another. In this essay, we will discuss the different types of beta taxonomy and procedure involved in beta taxonomy, like cladistics. This type of beta taxonomy involves classification of species based on their shared characteristics rather than on their physical similarities. This approach uses cladograms, which illustrate the branch relationships between this approach uses which illustrate the branching patterns of evolutionary relationships between species. Then phonetics. The classification of species based on their physical characteristics or similarities such as size, shape, and color. This approach uses phenograms which illustrate the degree of similarity between different species. Then evolutionary systematics. This type of beta taxonomy combines both cladistics and phonetics to classify species based on their evolutionary relationships and physical similarities. Beta steps. Bytes data. Then construction of phylogenetic trees. The data is then used to construct taxonomy. Gamma taxonomy, also known as integrative taxonomy, is a relatively new field of taxonomy that combines information from multiple sources such as morphology, genetics, behavior, and ecology to provide a comprehensive understanding of species and their relationships. In this essay, we will discuss the different types of gamma taxonomy, the procedure involved in gamma taxonomy, examples, and importance. So with the help of this video, we have learned about introduction of systematics and evolution, then definition and basic concepts in systematics and taxonomy, levels of taxonomy, alpha, beta and gamma taxonomy, importance and applications of taxonomy, goals of taxonomy, along with the definition of systematics and definition of classification. If you paid attention, you learned about all these topics in a quick manner. So thank you for listening. Next video you will be releasing later.